Hi there, Diederik Wolsak.
Goedemiddag, Marek, or good afternoon, Marek. How do you pronounce that? How do you pronounce it? Marek or Marek?
Marek.
Marek.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a wonderful name. Where is it from?
My mom is Polish. She's from Warsaw.
Okay.
Yeah.
That explains it. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful name.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, you see it in Poland and sometimes in Czech as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Maybe it's a good idea to start with a prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a ultra short prayer in mind. It's basically one sentence. And it goes like this. May the other only see thee and not me.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Get myself out of the way.
Yeah, that's a prayer for a namaste.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful.
Let me give a little introduction. Diederik is a fellow Dutchman, born in the Dutch East Indies, currently living in Costa Rica and Vancouver.
Mm-hmm. And Victoria.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're the founder of the Choose Again Foundation organization,
Mm-hmm.
And you just published a book. I know your story. I know the marvelous journey you've traveled. So would you once more for the viewers at home share your story? And I'm particularly interested in the turning point in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do my very best. There were probably so many turning points that it's hard to pick one, but I know the one you're thinking of. But there's one before that when I was very young, when I was in my teens, when I suddenly had a moment of really knowing the truth. So it was a moment of awakening, a moment of awareness, and crystal clear, unquestioned realization of who we are and what we are. Now that was a long time ago, and because I lived in Holland and I was generally considered a problem person, young person, I was sent to psychologists ever since I was 11 or 12, and really considered nothing but difficult for people. So I didn't mention my experience. If I'd lived in another country where this kind of experience would be talked about freely, my life could have taken a completely different path, but I didn't, and so I suppressed it. And then while suppressing it, my self-hatred continued to grow and grow and grow to the degree that I try to kill the little self that I hate, and the little self that I hate is, of course, we now call the ego, which I didn't know at the time. And I tried to kill it with booze and drugs and living like an idiot, driving like an idiot, really being extremely self-destructive at all levels, relationship, business, whatever I put into my body, sports, you name it. It all really had one purpose, and that was to annihilate the self I hated. And then about 25 years ago, after I turned 50, there came a time that I was extremely depressed and suicidal and drinking a lot, and realizing that if my life was going to look like that for the next whatever I would be allowed to have, it really wouldn't be worth living. So I got to the point that, as you've heard from so many people, where they say to themselves, and I said to myself, there has to be a better way. There has to be something that I can change, because I never forgot that moment of enlightenment. I sure as hell didn't live like an enlightened person, and I still don't, but I know what it is. And so I remembered that moment, and I decided to, at that time whether I wasn't going to kill myself. And a friend of mine had given me A Course in Miracles 2 years earlier. And I remember opening it and coming across the first line that I read in the course, which was, sin is to love what lack of light is, darkness is to lack of light. In other words, there is no such thing as sin, it's only a lack of love. And I was absolutely blown away by that sentence, loved it, thought this is for me, and then I read the next few lines which had the Father and the Holy Spirit and the Son of God, and I said, the hell with this is not for me, clearly, and I threw it away. But then when I got to the point of really where something had to change, I went back to the course and opening the course and saying, okay, for the first time in my life, I'm going to follow directions. And that to me was a huge step, because I'd been an athlete, I'd played internationally, and I'd always been considered not coachable because I always did things my way. And for the first time in my life, I literally said, the way I do things is obviously not working. And I have to step back, I have to surrender.
What was it a point of surrender or die?
It was a point of surrender or die. Yeah, exactly. And so I know that the course had 365 lessons, and I can do math, so I figured that that means one lesson a day, and I'm going to give this 1 year. And so I decided and committed to, for a whole year, to do exactly what I was instructed to do. And if it didn't work at the end of the year, I could still do what I had planned to do, which is to make an end to this miserable little life. And but I noticed within days that my life had changed. And looking back at it, it was probably, and I talk about this a lot actually in my workshops and posts, it probably was the moment of surrender more than anything else that made the difference. So maybe looking back at it now, it could be discussed that the actual doing the course, so to speak, which I do and still do, wasn't really what changed my life. What changed my life was the saying, I can't do this. The little I that I invented, the miserable little ego that I walk around this planet with, has nothing to do with love, doesn't understand love, doesn't know what love is, doesn't know what other is, has no love for anything, and particularly not for me. And so once I surrendered, suddenly I began to realize what other is, and that you and I are absolutely linked at the deepest level, not at an ego level, not at the body level, but at the deepest level. And that therefore whatever I was going to do for me would be for you, and whatever I was going to do for you would be for me. In other words, our interests were intrinsically linked as of that moment. And that's really what changed my life, probably more than the actual practice which followed. Even though without the practice, I think that moment would have vanished again. So the practice is essential and incredibly important. So from that moment on, I really just threw myself on the course. I spent 12, 13, 14 hours a day studying, meditating, reading. I know it says in the first lesson, for example, only spend a couple of seconds on it, but I spent days on every lesson. I didn't follow that instruction too well, because I thought, well, why spend a couple of seconds? I have the whole day. I need to get this. So there we are. And then within a few months, I had people come to see me that wanted to talk to me because they'd seen a change. And by the end of the first year of doing this, I had a full practice as a therapist, which I'd never, ever envisioned. So that was a completely surprising outcome of that decision. And from that moment on, that's what I've been doing. I've been basically in service, of service, living the life and learning the lessons that I need to learn and teaching the lessons that I need to learn. And it's been an incredible journey.
Yeah. In Dutch we say alles went. You know, you can get used to anything, and it's quite crazy the amount of suffering we're willing to endure before you know, we stand up for ourselves and say enough and change our mind.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I find that a really interesting statement you just made, because what happens, of course, when you do this work, you become less and less and less tolerant of suffering. In other words, suffering itself becomes an unacceptable interpretation of whatever is happening. So the whole idea of suffering is gone. I don't believe in suffering. I don't do suffering. I don't do anger. I don't do worry. I don't do fear. None of that is interesting anymore. It's lost all its fascination.
Yeah.
Well, before I was a world-class expert at anger. No longer. I mean, and the beauty, of course, is that the skill that my ego developed with regards to anger, which it's then used in lots of different areas of my life, that skill is still available. So I can now use that skill in situations where suddenly it's called for, but not because I'm angry, but simply because I have that skill still.
Yeah. Yeah. So having lived your life, what would you say is, what is our purpose? Why are we here? What is what is our purpose?
Well, that's the eternal question. You can answer it in many different ways. The purpose is to be of service. The purpose is to give and receive love. The purpose is to know the self. The purpose is to learn to look at absolutely everything within my life as the self. And an additional purpose would be to recognize the absolute meaninglessness of everything in my life. So to train my mind not to take anything personally. And the more I train my mind to not take anything personally, of course, the more joyful my life becomes. So the purpose ultimately is to fall in love with the self, to surrender to the truth, to know who you are.
Yeah.
And the form that takes is irrelevant. Because people often say, well, if I want to have that purpose, I'm going to have to sit in a cave in the Himalayas. No, not at all. That's not true. What it does require is a commitment, a commitment within myself. But whatever form that takes doesn't matter. So in my case, it's taken the form of teaching workshops and giving talks and having a wonderful center in Costa Rica and workshops in France and Holland and Switzerland and blah, blah, blah. It all looks absolutely wonderful, but that's irrelevant. That's not the issue.
Yeah.
You can have the exact same purpose being a dishwasher. You can have exact same purpose being the CEO of a large corporation. But what does matter is that within that purpose, I'm constantly aware of whether my words or actions are love-based or fear-based. And so the discipline that I develop and that you develop, that we all have to develop sooner or later, is to be able to tell the difference. Am I coming from love? Is this actually a love-based? Am I extending love or am I crying for love? And people always say, well, I don't know the difference, but that's not true. You know the difference by how you feel. So if I'm extending love, I feel wonderful, I feel peaceful, I feel calm and serene and absolutely secure. If I don't feel those experiences, then I know I'm crying for love. And then all I have to do is stop and answer my cry for love.
Yeah. So you, at one point you started the foundation, so aptly called Choose Again.
Mm-hmm.
And what is Choose Again all about?
Well, Choose Again, I started the center in Costa Rica because in my private practice, which by that time was absolutely full and booming and wonderful, financially highly rewarding, etc. But I realized more and more that my own healing had come to a halt. That whatever my clients brought to a session no longer triggered me in any way, and a trigger, of course, is a golden opportunity to do some work. And so I wasn't being triggered at all anymore, and I realized that the one thing that a number of things I don't like is, one, I don't like spending a lot of time with people. I certainly don't like having to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner with people. I certainly don't like having to live with people. So what do? I open a center where all those three are in my face all day long. In other words, I expanded the healing opportunities and the learning opportunities dramatically by having a center.